Hi. In this video, we'll have a look at the construction of a Genie lamp for a ballet production of Aladdin. This is the long version showing the full build. So if you want to see a summary, have a look in the links below for the abridged version. Here you can see the device in the actual production. The design was done using Onshape's free online software. Use of the software is free if you don't mind your designs being public. There are 6 parts, 2 sides, 2 halves of the handle, the top, and then the lid. Smoke is provided by a vape pen. I never thought I'd buy one. I think the habit is disgusting, but there you go. Here are the 6 parts after 3D print. The prints were done in 3 batches of about 10 hours each. Start the assembly with the right hand side and the right handle. I'm using a B7000 adhesive for this job. I purchased this to do a phone screen repair, and it's quite nice. It's reworkable, so if things go wrong, you can peel it apart, and it can be softened up and dissolved to some extent with isopropyl alcohol, which makes it easy to fix errors. I think it's one of its purposes is for jewelry and hobby craft. I glued the handles together and the back half of the lamp itself, leaving the front free for a bit of finer work later. The shape gave me a little bit of trouble clamping together. I used rubber bands on it. This caused a little distortion on it, which I sort out with hot water later. The smoke generator is a vape pen, as I mentioned. I detest these things, but they have their uses apparently. So the vape pen consists of the on-off switch, USB port, 2 inlets for the air, and the smoke comes out the nozzle at the top. We're going to use a small computer fan to put some positive pressure behind the vape pen, which is 22 millimeters diameter. And the fan is 5 volt, so we can run that from 4 NiCad or nickel metal hydrides, or even some AA batteries. So we need to duct the fan up the side of the vape pen and force the air into the air vents at the top. I drew this up on Onshape. The drawing links are available, and I'm in the happy position that I have access to a laser cutter, so I was able to make this quite easily, but you could do it with the scalpel, and you wouldn't need quite so much detail around the fold parts as I've put in there. Nice thing with the laser is that you can score some of the lines, makes it very easy to get accurate bends. The B7000 takes really about 20 minutes for it to get a decent bite. So assembly just needs do something, go off and do something else, come back and glue the next bit, or alternate between parts that you're working on. The back end is glued up and clipped. We'll seal up the ducts to make it airtight. I've also glued the fan holder onto the base of the vape pen. Some adhesive on the fan. Make sure you have the positive pressure fan orientation correct. Do a test on the fan. It's a 5-volt fan. I forgot to note the power requirements, but it's quite low. This looks like it'll work. I'm using a chocolate flavored smoke in this. It's nicotine free for health reasons, but the chocolate doesn't smell too healthy either. It leaves quite a strong presence in the room. On a previous prototype, I had made a clip for the vape and a little actuator button which protruded through the bottom of the lamp. But it needed a separate switch for the fan, and I wasn't too sure that it would work well in this situation. The problem is that it won't work with my air ducts. So we'll take it apart for modification and we'll hook into the existing switch contacts. There are various YouTube videos showing how to open the Vape 22. This was one technique and it works to a certain extent. You can get a start on the thing. So I developed my own technique with the vice grips, and here I'm wrapping a little foil around the top to prevent too much damage. Hold it in the hand, whack with the mallet a few times, and it should pull out. The stainless steel case is quite tough, and here you can see I've the vents and some vice grip marks on the top, but it's not where the O-ring sits, so that's not a problem. Here I'm dismantling the circuit board or removing it from the top housing. And we're going to try and solder external contacts of the switch onto the existing switch. For access, I'm desoldering the vape tip and having to use a high temperature for this for the thermal mass and the high temperature solder they've used on it. I tried to work in under the surface mount switch contacts with the soldering iron, but it was just too tight. And in the end, I wound up removing the existing push button switch from the circuit board so that I could wire up my external switch. Here I'm desoldering the battery negative just to make it safer if I do short something during the soldering operation, that it won't cause any damage. Wires in place. I later put some of the B7000 on that to act as a strain relief there and on the outside of the tube. 4 blinks on the white LED indicate that the vape element is out of range, which is somewhere between, it has to be between 0.1 and 0.8 ohms or something like that. And since there's no element there, we get the error code. Resolder the element connection. Line everything up so the USB port is in the right position. Got it slightly out and had to knock it out again. The engineering of the unit is quite good. The stainless steel case is quite tough and the precision is good on it. So that's working. We've used one contact of a 2-pole switch. So one contact will operate the vape pen and the other contact will operate the fan. So they're on completely separate electrical circuits. Clip didn't work. So we'll try a piece of tape. Now we can reattach the housing. Reseal for airtightness. These battery holders are from a set of Christmas fairy lights. I just split it in two, and I'm using nickel metal hydride batteries. In this case, 4 of those should give me around 4.85 volts, which is perfect for the fan. I would imagine the fan would work quite well at 6 volts without difficulties, especially for short duration use as this will have. I'll spare you the rest of this as I rewired it all later with a heavier gauge wire just for mechanical strength. I wound up with a little problem, as mentioned earlier. I didn't have a good fit near the tip of the lamp, so I decided to thermoform it a little by softening it. I've never done this before, so I decided 80 degrees C might be a safe-ish temperature. So I got the back end of it in position and we'll slow down to real-time speed here so you get a sense of how this worked for me. Check the temperature, close enough to 80 degrees C. Note the gap between the lid and the body. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I had no idea. And to my horror, found that the thing had gone quite goopy and floppy. So I worked very quickly just to fit the lid into place. And it turned out quite well. Tip needed another little bit of correction. Sorry for getting off camera, but the lamp was more important than the video. That'll look fine from 10 meters away from the stage. Now I had the problem of how to hold it together. I'd considered various options here and had magnets in the back of my head, but decided to use a threaded rod. This is a little trick I use quite a bit. Just cut a wooden circle. I'm using an M6 threaded rod, so I need an M6 nut in the timber, and they are 10 millimeters across flats. So you just drill a 10 millimeter hole and pull a nut in with a bolt and washer. There's a handy trick for making knobs, and in this case, the base of the lamp. I hadn't thought this through and came up with this notion when I saw how stiff the lid was. So I was quite pleased with the result. The problem with design on the fly is that you forget stuff. And here I've forgotten that I need air inlets for the vape pen. So the fan has to draw air from somewhere. And I've also found that the bolt coming up right dead center is just making it a little bit tight for the fan there, throwing the vape pen too far up the spout. So I'm modifying the housing here, and if I just tilt the fan into the housing, it will give me enough clearance to fit the whole lot in. So give the lamp a lick of paint. I found a nice dull brass spray. It's not very glossy when it dries. I've mounted the switch. I've also put in a little safety here on with a jack on the vape trigger so that when I want to disable it, I can. I've also modified the timber discs. I made new ones. The one in the top has 7 holes on it. The star wheel there that I'm putting on has 6. So I don't have any requirement to line up the holes precisely to get air in. The piece of cling film is just so the adhesive doesn't bind the two wooden parts together. Just apply a little more here. Let that dry for a couple of hours, whip off. And very glad that I put the cling film on. All still working. Disconnect the safety. And back together. So overall, I'm very happy. We let the genie out of the lamp. And with the magic of video, we can put the genie back in the lamp. The drawings are available on Thingiverse. There's a PDF. If you print it 1-to-1, you can cut that out, but you'll probably wind up making your own design to suit your vape pen. I'll also be producing a video on the magic carpet ride, so have a look at that as well. You may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, if you want the shorter version, there's a link down below.